Welcome to the OpenBMC, an overview for decision makers and influencers. This is part of OpenBMC video series in YouTube. Thanks for taking the time to view this video. Hope this time you spent watching the video will be useful and informational. Let's set the context for this video. This video is created specifically for decision makers and influencers. Since there is a lot of videos about OpenBMC for firmware builders and developers, thought it's important for the decision makers to evaluate OpenBMC and use them in their own projects by clearly understanding the benefits, cautions, rationales, and adoption steps. OpenBMC has for last many years has been a topic that is widely discussed among firmware engineers and developers and a community that is very focused at source code and implementation. But its evolution and growth of any technology, as we know, is primarily driven by adopters for their own commercial products and deployments. Yes, true. The current thought leaders who know why they want OpenBMC and have been very successfully using it are mostly hyperscalers. But with new players coming into the server market and an appetite for new technologies with cost consciousness, as well as some of the existing players who are looking to move to OpenBMC, it's a key for them to understand why OpenBMC is a choice for them and what are the benefits as well as limitations. This video hopes to provide some information for decision makers and influencers for them to make an informed choice to move to OpenBMC for their current and upcoming hardware platforms. Before we go into this video, a standard disclaimer. Please treat all the information provided in this video as suggestions and opinions that are gathered over some of the author's experience, and please use your own judgment. The scope of this video is limited to Linux Foundation OpenBMC firmware, which is driven by community. There are other versions of OpenBMC or available like from Intel, Meta, etc. Each of these serve a very important purpose in the evolution of OpenBMC, but to limit in our discussion, today this video will deal only with Linux Foundation OpenBMC only. The motivation to switch to OpenBMC. This is one of the key topics where it is very important to understand what drives some of the solutions to move to OpenBMC or consider OpenBMC in for the last many years. We have loosely categorized based on a lot of information gathered from customers and builders in following categories. They control their own destiny. These models like hyperscalers and those they face typical issues that is not common across vendors and other solutions that they require a very short deterministic SLA time for things to be completed and resolved. And also they don't believe that the issues they are seeing may not be the issues which is being seen by others, or they don't have any inclination of sharing the issues with anybody else. So this they form a very important space of I would like to control my own firmware. I would like to control my own variables which dictate my deployments and my solutions. That's category number one. The number two is they're not satisfied with status quo. That's like they this is like an informed category. Those who don't like they have worked through many of the existing solutions. Again, the word like is basically their expectations are not met and their requirements are not aligned. So they believe that they would like to do it by themselves. And the third category is those believe that the current solution is too heavy and it's big. So you cannot argue with that. Again, is the expectation is they have a set expectation of what is a lightweight implementation, and they would like to only see the firmware BMC solution closely uh, aligned to what they need, as opposed to what are the different features and things which I comes together with it. And the fourth category is it's mine, in a sense that with the with the constant evolution of server applications in terms of scale out and density, there are new platform design models which are appearing every day as we speak. And they believe that their needs, what they need the server management and why they need the BMC is extremely confidential and IP related. And since they are working on pioneering fields, they don't want to share it around. And the last category, which is a common category, is the low cost solution model. Because most of them gravitate to OpenBMC because of the word open and it is open source. And they believe that the great enticement is it's free and it's royalty free. And also, they believe that they can leverage a lot of community resource to garner and actually use their expertise to build their own products. We will see as we go through this video what are the goodness and badness of making those assumptions. We believe that most of the people who are switching to OpenBMC may have a mix of all these traits, and we believe that that is the reason they are moving to OpenBMC. There are other reasons which may have not been listed, but please, we would like you to provide us feedback. We would definitely like to add that to this video, and we will create a future version so that the information is complete. So it will be good to take a moment to understand the benefits of OpenBMC. OpenBMC has been an open source initiative which is created by hyperscalers who wanted to demystify server management in order to be able to handle their own challenges. That may be the initial motive, but it's a key milestone in the server industry because of the fact that OpenBMC allowed a public dialogue. Like today, I am actually presenting this video and about features and technologies which are previously considered as proprietary and are usually represented in forums of written standards, right? Collaborated by key industrial players. And because of the nature and the seriousness of this technology in terms of RMAs, warranties, and operational expense, etc., this was not widely available for everybody to sort of jump in. The OpenBMC allowed to have a realizable open source implementation, which helps a lot more to understand the context and how some of the standards fit together. So this is sort of a very key milestone in the server industry. In fact, I would say that OpenBMC helps the industry to grow in terms of adding more resources and training people in this particular area of server management and firmware development a lot more than what happened before OpenBMC. And the OpenBMC is free and does not have royalty constraints and it is community driven. And OpenBMC features are continuously modified by and improved across hundreds of developers in the community. A big thanks to some of the industry players for taking the role of maintainers and contributors to the cause and keeping the lights on for this open source movement. I know that OpenBMC have gone through multiple iterations of maturity, and there are some very key industrial players who are steadfast in this moment, even in this time, and encouraged it and fostered it, including Open Compute Project is one of the great vehicle for doing it, is including Linux Foundation. And OpenBMC is very malleable and can be shaped to your requirements. This statement is meant for those, maybe when I make this statement, you need to understand that this is only meant for those who know how to bend and shape OpenBMC. And please don't take it as it is a statement for general availability. OpenBMC recommends you to contribute back to a community, but they don't insist that as the fundamental requirement for you to use them, which is excellent. OpenBMC allows you to create derived works and open source them with no issues. It's an amazing approach, gives you greater flexibility. OpenBMC provides QEMU emulation, platform emulation. It's natively. This is one of the most important feature of OpenBMC. This would help with building OpenBMC base without waiting for real platforms. Now that we have spoken about the benefits, let's have some cautions. There's nothing negative, but as decision makers and influencers, you need to be aware of them. OpenBMC is a zero liability firmware source. Like any other open source, the author uses it on their own risk and knowledge. OpenBMC comes as under the do it yourself category in a sense that it's like going to the back of a Lego store, if you imagine, and trying to use the pieces to build your castle on your own design. OpenBMC has a lot of source code, and any adoption will still lack a clear ownership because A lot of the code is contributed and maybe in different stage of maturity and making it difficult to cover warranty, of course. This can be mitigated by a lot of testing and verification and also a lot of code understanding and design understanding. And most of the traditional BMC firmware implementations have manufacturing coverage. I'm sure because it's been built over decades. And you need to understand that OpenBMC is extremely focused on the BMC firmware, like in the core of the BMC firmware, leaving a lot of manufacturing aligned features to be left to the orchestration area, such as test procedures, provisioning, like manufacturing provisioning requirements, may not find direct coverage. So you need to think about adding your own or trying to see what you do now and try to add that to OpenBMC. And maybe it will be good to keep it to yourself because these are all, there is no set standard today because each platform builder has their own manufacturing models. And again, this video is not encouraging everybody to come together for that. OpenBMC is a contributed source from different vendors of the supply chain, making it focus on standard open sourceable features only. So any standard feature that are part of a value addition in OEM and other firmware providers may or may not be available in OpenBMC and may need to be developed or you need to be licensed. So this point is very useful for those who are moving from another firmware implementation to OpenBMC. So be aware of that. And OpenBMC, the maturity is more governed by content of each module because that's how the maintainers actually look for it. And so this would require the customer to gather all the right modules and bring them to a stable solution, and in a sense that their maturity process is not guaranteed. They don't provide any guarantees for bundling. So you only when you use all these things in this way, OpenBMC doesn't give you a stamp of approval or guarantees that if you use all these modules together, everything should be working for you, period, and we are liable. As I said earlier, there is no liability OpenBMC takes at this moment. Now that we have seen the benefits and what you should be aware of, now let's say this slide can be used to set the expectations for decision makers and influencers about the execution of OpenBMC project. Just because it is free, just because it is available in GitHub, you need to understand, please allow time for your team to choose the right combination of OpenBMC community features and build a hardened OpenBMC base. This will be a good time if for those who believe that you don't want to do this by yourself. You please approach OpenBMC from some of the firmware vendors. They have rich firmware experience and they offer today. I don't want to use this as a advertisement for them, but please approach OCP. There are some very good OpenBMC vendors available and they would be able to actually provide you with the right set of bundles, right, for you to jumpstart on this one. This can be alleviated. This is not a very difficult one, but you need to understand that there is a choice in front of you. Either you can have your entire team do your DIY, as I said, or you can always go with a set of informed people like firmware vendors who can bootstrap you. And be aware that the features that may have been obvious and standard in other ODMs, OEMs, and firmware vendors and BMC vendors may not be present in OpenBMC. That doesn't mean that you need to take the burden it on yourself. Please work with your architects to make sure the cost of bringing these features into your OpenBMC product is worth the effort and time. Just because you had it before doesn't need to be that you need to have it now. So I would say because there is a lot of cost involved on developing new features in OpenBMC, please be aware of that. And the OpenBMC, because of its ability to emulate early, engage your manufacturing, electrical, mechanical, thermal, and platform design teams early to understand if the choices align with OpenBMC and does not require you to build new firmware features, as this will be a big cost adder. Also need to bring a key decision. Do you want to open source it or you would like to keep it private? All these things, it'd be good to have thought about it in the beginning rather than it become a surprise for you. OpenBMC provides standard features for provisioning and security. Critical to have your architects inform you what exists and what are the strengths and the limitations and whether it aligns with your security and provisioning map and your requirements. And be aware that OpenBMC is not built with power on in mind. So it requires to develop bare metal features that will help you to bootstrap your platform, because this becomes very key because some of the platform builders who have been doing it or people who migrated from different or different areas to OpenBMC, they may think that some of these things are given, right? Or it is there all along in eternity. BMC to power on, and now it needs to go from power on back to BMC in order to retrofit it. We believe setting these expectations in terms of investment in time before moving to OpenBMC will help you to be successful and build and orchestrate OpenBMC products. Also, it is important to understand the decision to switch to OpenBMC will provide a lot of learning that would help to bring down the cost generation to generation. If the expectation is to work on OpenBMC for one cycle, please, our recommendation is work with a firmware vendor, as there is no incentive to put so much of effort bringing OpenBMC to life for your product with so much of learning when you're not planning to leverage it for your next generation. So our recommendation is please plan it for long term. Now that we have seen the benefits, cautions, adoption steps, it's key to understand what is the different alternatives to OpenBMC in order to complete the picture. Because we don't want it to make it like, yeah, we are shilling for OpenBMC. We need you to understand OpenBMC is an emerging initiative, and it's trying to cater to a group of customers and platform builders who are motivated to utilize OpenBMC. It's important to clearly understand and evaluate the existing rich and experienced OEM BMC firmware solutions and firmware vendor solutions before you move to OpenBMC. This is our recommendation because you need to understanding why you are gravitating to OpenBMC. Put a slide together in order to provide a comparison between your furniture industry to parity to server management solution stands. So if you take this furniture industry, we moved from, let's say, the axis is governed by product cost and design choices and assembly time. So we have three. I have took the liberty of adding these three brands, and again, this entire picture figure is used for illustration only. So please don't there is nothing else, and all these brands and they are copyrighted material from different brands, so we just are using to illustrate a point. The rooms to go as is a fully baked furniture, so the cost is high because the design choices are already pre-made, and it's your assembly time is extremely low, so you buy and you deploy. The IKEA, in the other hand, is you would like to do it by yourself, but at the same time you don't want to start from beginning, so it is somewhere in the middle. You don't have all the choices of rooms to go, the finish and everything, but at the same time you're not just sort of have a stack of wood and actually start from beginning. So IKEA is somewhere in the middle, really gives you the satisfaction to do something. The third choice is for people who are really looking to say, oh, you know what, Rooms to Go doesn't have my choice, neither is IKEA. And there is a possibility that you might need to go to a lumber side of Home Depot and stand there and try to find out which choice of lumber, the length, breadth, and everything. And you try to build it by yourself. Remember, when you try to build this yourself, it's okay to build it for yourself in your home. But if you're trying to do this as a commercial side, I'm sure Home Depot, even it is a Herculean task in Home Depot because you need to really engage professionals to do that, or you need to be ready to become a professional. So if you take this one analogy and try to move to the right side, is the if you say the right side is very similar, it's have the OEM solutions, which has been built for decades of experience, right? And it's built very reliable solutions, and they are catering to an extreme wide market, and they have accumulated a lot of features over the requirements, and they have a lot of strength, and they build complete solutions. And most of their solution choices they are providing is basically covers a wide gamut of business models and applications. And your flexibility, you are not going to get a lot of flexibility because it's a pre-baked. And your do it DIY, I don't think so. They usually allow somebody to do something by your own because of the warranties involved. Let's say you go to the next level is you go to the firmware vendors who have been building blocks for decades now, and they are extremely experienced. There is flexibility in it, but that flexibility is basically you're working with a bunch of experts. So in a sense that you they will not allow you to make certain choices which you cannot make because they are expecting to guard you from doing mistakes. Their expertise has a cost. So the firmware vendor solution is an excellent middle ground for those who would like to build something by yourself, but remember there is a time spent. There is a development cost involved, and there is a bit of flexibility. And you can do a lot of DIY, but remember one thing: the moment you do DIY on a firmware vendor solutions, most of the time you are on your own. Okay, so it's basically fundamentals change. So finally, if you come back to OpenBMC, you know OpenBMC it's reduced cost but increased like have a sizable development time compared to the rest of the two. May have a good amount of flexibility and do it by yourself, but you need to understand how it fits. So please come to OpenBMC with a clear expectations to take the ride of discovery, learning, and engagement. Please don't compare it with OEMs or firmware vendor solutions as each of them are there for a clear reason. In summary, if you believe you want to join the club of OpenBMC firmware builders, please go ahead. We encourage you. Please make the switch. But please understand, make the switch with the right expectations. And we would like you to continue to evaluate OEMs and ODMs and firmware vendor solutions. And finally, the motivation to OpenBMC should not only be driven by cost alone. As you need to be aware, the reason for this statement is the total cost of building a fully featured OpenBMC firmware solution tailored for your platform may not be very predictable if you don't have resources who have traveled and did this before. But with experience like any open source project, as you keep doing it from generation to generation, it will definitely reduce the total cost of development and support. And OpenBMC has a lot of great reasons to switch too, but we also encourage you to make the choice in an informed manner. I hope you find the video useful. If you have any questions, concerns, corrections, or suggestions, please add your comments to the video or email me at haveyouthoughtaboutit@gmail.com. Our motto: open source should lead to open knowledge, meaning giving the fish is a good start, but should always follow with teaching how to fish. Thank you for your time.